Sunday, August 27th, 2000, a 50-year-old husband and father named Bruce Leniger sat in his living room in Lafayette, Louisiana. His son, James, the 2-year-old, has his favorite toy plane, and he is repeatedly smashing it into the coffee table as loud as he can, saying, "Plane crash, plane crash, plane crash." Over the past few months, James had become fixated on plane crashes. James had begun having these recurring nightmares. James, had just been in a horrible fiery plane crash, and it was like every night. He also began to tell Bruce and his wife these weird details about the plane crash, because it was always the same plane crash in his nightmare. "The Japanese shot me down." And the doctors were all like, "Nah, he's a kid. Yeah, it's a weird fixation he's got, but he'll grow out of it. Don't worry about it." Bruce decided he had to do something about this. And so over the next couple of months, he began leaning in and asking James to give him more information. The type of plane that James was flying in apparently was a Corsair plane. Bruce found himself sitting in the living room, and he had this World War II coffee table book full of pictures of pilots and combat and war. He called James over and he shows him this book. Towards the end of the coffee table book, he suddenly stops and he points at one of the pages and he says to his dad, "That's where I was shot down." And he's pointing at the Battle of Iwo Jima. Bruce had this idea to get in touch with this old veterans group. And the historian, he tells Bruce that during that battle, there was one plane that was shot down. A single US Air Force pilot was shot down during the Battle of Iwo Jima, and he was killed. And that pilot's name was James Houston Jr. They discover that James has a sister who is still alive. James and his wife, they send a message to this woman, to the sister. Her reaction was to send actual physical photographs of James Houston Jr. when he was a pilot, when he served in the military. And when Bruce looked at these photos, it was like his whole world was completely rocked. Because in one of the photos that clearly showed James Houston Jr., he is standing in front of a plane, and that plane was a Corsair plane. Periodically, his son James would talk about how he really wasn't named James. He was named James III. And now Bruce is thinking, James Houston Jr.? That's James II. My son? How could he possibly know all these things that happened to James Houston Jr. if he was not James III, James Houston Jr.'s reincarnated soul? Bruce would eventually take his son's story to the news, and the family would film a primetime segment on ABC about it. James was soon invited to the Battle of Iwo Jima Veterans Reunion, where he would shock the group with his knowledge of the battle. James also met James Houston Jr.'s sister, and when he did, he called her by a nickname that only her late brother ever used. After that, even she was convinced that her brother's spirit come back to Earth in James III. If reincarnation is real, James's story is one of the most credible and well-documented cases in history.